Welcome to the last session of day 2 of our first ever virtual Delaware College and Career Exploration Days. I am personally very excited about our final panel of the day. It's with a great partner of Talos, Boeing, who I just love partnering with because they are on an ongoing basis showcasing all of the great career opportunities in aerospace and related fields, and making sure that young people all over the country know about the pathways to land great jobs in aerospace. We're going to hear more on that throughout the panel. But before we get started and introduce not only our 5 panelists from Boeing, yes, this is our biggest panel of Delaware Days so far. We will be showcasing a quick video to introduce everyone to the Boeing company if you're not familiar already. Before we hit play, a few housekeeping reminders before we play that video. We will have the final AirPod giveaway revealed around 3:30 today. So look in the chat for that brief survey to answer questions about all the different sessions we've had in day 2 for a chance to win. In addition, we will be ending this session with a live Q&A with all 5 panelists. So please take some time to think through some questions you'd like to ask Boeing, submit that in the Q&A box, and we will wrap up our session answering those questions. So let's go ahead and watch this video from Boeing first, and then we'll begin our panel.
On the banks of the Delaware River, south of South Philly, Boeing people put their own spin on things. Every day is Independence Day, igniting a passion of innovation to make a difference in our lives. Boeing Philadelphia builds rotorcraft, vehicles that defy convention and turn from helicopters into airplanes. Flying machines as unique to Pennsylvania's largest city as its culinary traditions. Aircraft that provide a taste of freedom. The Chinook and the Osprey are built to connect, protect, explore, and inspire a world often at odds with its surroundings. The Chinook is the reliable gatekeeper. For more than 5 decades, the heavy lift legend has opened and closed the door to conflict and delivered aid to those in need. The Osprey is the chameleon, half helicopter, half airplane, a tilt rotor for an ever-changing landscape. Boeing Philadelphia does more than roll impressive aircraft out of the factory. It checks the direction of the wind and foretells the future. It puts fight into a fighter. It engineers fresh ideas across the enterprise. In this cradle of American independence, those who build these chariots of the clouds do it with passion and determination. Their aircraft carry people out of danger, get them home safely, but always timely vertical lift.
Fantastic. Well, that was a great introduction and way to start off the last panel of the day. Again, for all of our attendees, this will be the last session of day 2. And I do want to share that we've extended this session slightly. It will last until 2:45, just because we know with 5 panelists, there's going to be a lot of questions coming in and we want to make sure we get to those. So I think we're ready to get started. I'd love to introduce all 5 of our panelists. I think we have one who's still joining, but please welcome Brian, Christina, Tim, Isaac, and Russell from Boeing, our 5 panelists. Thank you for joining us. If you have not already, please feel free to turn on your video and audio. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us again. I'd love to start just with a round robin of introductions, if you don't mind, starting off with, of course, your name, your educational background, and really how it led to your current role and position at Boeing. So Christina, ladies first, would you like to start off?
Hi, my name is Christina Bowen. I went to school for mechanical engineering and I work for Boeing, the vertical lift division. I work directly with the chief engineer, and what my title is competitiveness and integration. A little bit about my background. I grew up in North Jersey, just outside of New York City, in a pretty large town called West Orange. And I went to public school through 8th grade. What kind of geared me towards going towards engineering was I ended up being in a lot of design competitions while I was in school. Some of them were sponsored by Panasonic and others through the town, through STEM. It really kind of got me jazzed, and I was passionate, and I also liked to win. I was on a lot of sports teams as well. But then when it came time to go to high school, because my town was so large, I was sent to an all-girls private school, which is a smaller class size. My parents' intention there was to kind of keep me focused and out of trouble, because sometimes when I was not always, when I got bored, I would find creative ways to do things I shouldn't be doing. So while in private school, I really got recalibrated and was challenged a lot more. But I did have a lot of bumps in the road. My behavior wasn't always great, but I was always able to like redirect and get engaged again. And I think what also helped me in my career was kind of being involved in sports teams. Learning to be part of a team is like critically important, and has definitely helped me towards my career. And then I went to college at Rowan in South Jersey. And now I work for Boeing. So I'll pass it.
Great. Thank you for starting us off, Christina. I'll now pass it over to Tim.
Hey, hi, Tim Hartley. I work on the V-22 Osprey program. I'm a project manager. I think that my career highlights the many paths to Boeing. I actually did my undergrad in elementary education. I don't know how that translates to aerospace directly on paper, but my career is a winding path of excelling in jobs, taking on different challenges. Came to Boeing in, I'd say mid-career, 15 years professional. I've been here for 10 years and it's been amazing. I'm currently studying for my MBA at Villanova, so trying to round out the business skills from away from my educational background, but there are many paths to here.
Fantastic. I'm excited to hear more about that. All right, next up, Brian.
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Babby, and unlike the two who just spoke before me, I've wanted to be an aerospace engineer since I was little. I've always liked things that fly, and I've always enjoyed math and science throughout middle school, high school. So right out of high school, I went to Clarkson University in very far upstate New York for aeronautical engineering, and then a few weeks after graduation, decided 4 years of college and it wasn't enough. So ended up at the University of Notre Dame working on a graduate program where I stayed through a PhD, which I finished. So lots of research time there. Did a year as a postdoc, and then I've been with the Boeing company since 2009, largely working on exactly what I studied. My expertise was in aerodynamics, and got an aerodynamics job right out of graduate school. And where I found myself right now is I am currently managing certification projects on the MH-139 Grey Wolf program for the U.S. Air Force. It's a new product we're particularly excited about, and it's been a lot of fun to work on. Through my job in flight technology and aerodynamics in particular, I've had a chance to work on the V-22, the Chinook, and more recently I found myself doing conceptual design and new product development, where literally it's a customer saying, hey, here's what we need, go figure it out. And it's just getting the right talented folks in the room and figuring it out. So it's been a dream, and it's been a fantastic ride.
Great. It's really interesting hearing how diverse all of your different roles are at Boeing. All right, Russell, we'll move on to you next.
Hey everyone, really excited to be here. So I'm kind of like Tim and Christina in that I didn't know what I wanted to do. I always did well in school, especially in math and science, and I kind of had this thought that smart people either had to be lawyers or doctors. I don't know where that came from, but that's what was in my head when I started college. So I did my undergrad at Rutgers, and I started out in biology. I did really horrible, and I hated it. And then I jumped to comp sci. I didn't like that either. But while in that, I started taking some physics classes, really enjoyed that. And then the sidebar there is that I was always interested in planes. I live in New Jersey, and there's a park down here right across the river from the airport where planes come in and land, and they fly right over this park. And I used to spend hours down there with my grandfather. But I didn't know what engineering was really, and I didn't know that you could be an engineer. Everybody in my family was in education. It wasn't something that I actually really thought about. But so then I got into it at Rutgers. I really loved it. Extended my undergrad a year to get through that degree since I switched to it so late. Then I went right to Penn State, got my master's in aerospace engineering, and then started at Boeing right after that. So I'm a structural design engineer, structural design lead now. I work in a design center. So unlike most of the other folks on the phone who have supported all Philadelphia products, I've supported products all over the company's portfolio. So I worked 787 commercial aircraft, 777X, which is still in flight test. And right now I'm working on some fighter jet trainers, the T-45, some mod work on that. So that's how I got here.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Russell. All right, Isaiah, and we're just starting off with a round of introductions. So we'd love to learn a bit more about your educational background and how it landed you your current role with Boeing. And we can't.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Sorry for the late join. I was having some technical issues. So I had to switch to my cell phone. So Isaac Richardson. Right now, my current role is executive assistant to Steve Parker. He's a vice president, general manager of our vertical lift unit here in Philadelphia and Mesa. And my background started back in Baltimore, Maryland, where my family was very big advocates for STEM education. And so I attended various different summer camps, Saturday learning sessions, and then eventually went to college to receive my industrial engineering degree. And then did an internship over in Boeing, Seattle. And then from there, went to work full time in Philadelphia, and have had many different experiences and opportunities where I've been exposed to so many different people and so many different areas related to STEM, and really this fueling the fire in a sense of just the passion behind what STEM is. And that has led me to my current role.
Well, Isaiah, I'm going to stay with you because I think our next question lends well to what you were just saying. The next question I'd love to ask is, what are some things that you did during your time in school that helped shape your next step towards your career?
That's a good question. I would say the things I did in school was really asking questions, not afraid to ask questions when I don't understand something, or I want to understand it more, was a really big thing in my, elementary, middle school, high school, and the college years, of just always asking questions. But then also reading a lot and trying to make myself aware of all that's going on, really shaped and guided me toward that STEM focus. And I will say that what really helped was being around other people that had like interests and trying to find them. And if I didn't have, say, a group of friends that didn't have that interest, trying to find out where that is, whether it's whether it was a Facebook group or some other meeting group that could meet up with and just have share my ideas and kind of nerd out, as you could say, in that regard.
We can all relate to that. Fantastic. Thank you, Isaiah, for sharing that. Russell, I'd love to pose the same question to you. Is there any advice that you give to any students during their time in school to help them towards that next step?
Yeah, so, for me, a lot of what came out of college was, so one, like I said, I did well when I was younger in school. So when I got to college, I kind of had a lazy attitude, right? Where I thought it was going to be really easy. And it was a bit of culture shock for me. And I really struggled my first year. And part of that was, like I said, I didn't like the classes I was taking, but it was also, I needed to change my attitude from where it was when I was younger. So a lot of it for me was developing that work ethic. It was about buckling down and finding a system that I could use that would help me do well. For me, it was things like I set specific times that I was going to spend in the library every night, and I dedicated those to work. And that helped me get away from the distractions of, roommates going out to do something fun, being tempted to go do that. Instead I was at the library and I had a specific focus, and, it was about that. I had to embrace the tough time that I was going to have in school and get through it, and realize that I was going to miss out on fun stuff. But the long game, right? I had to keep that long game in my mind. So it was, for me, it was really about shaping work ethic and about, understanding that you're not always going to know what you want right away in life, in school, career, whatever. And you kind of got to struggle through and try different things until you find that path that you're really excited about, and it's going to make you happy. And then once you find that, then you can go at it.
Right. I can speak to that. I have a history degree and I work in technology education. Go figure.
There you go.
Great. Thank you, Russell. I appreciate that. So I think I'd love to move into a few questions that I think our attendees are really excited to hear about. And that's the idea of landing a job with Boeing. So I'm going to pose this question to a few people. Let's start with Brian. Brian, how did you find this job, or your first job after you graduated? And what are some ways to be discovered by a company like Boeing?
All right. For mine, one that you'll probably hear over and over is networking. After, college and then throughout graduate school, I just made a lot of friends who had jobs just out in the industry. And a good way to just learn was, ping your friends. Hey, what are you up to? What's going on? Is anybody hiring? What's a good fit? Fortunately, I had one of my classmates from Notre Dame was working at Boeing in Philadelphia at the time and had said, hey, we're hiring. We have some neat stuff going on. I think you might be a good fit. So I ended up applying for the job I ended up getting. And then he kind of helped me through, hey, here's some neat things you might want to brush up on. Here's some skills that will be helpful on. Here's some things you might want to know about the job if you're seriously considering. So did that. I applied for the job, and then the career fair was really helpful to me too. I'd already applied to the job, and I knew Boeing was going to have a presence at the job fair. So I literally took my resume, printed on it, wrote down the job requisition number on top of the resume, and said, hey, I applied to this job. I think I'm a really good fit. And then 2 days later, the manager who eventually ended up hiring me gave me a call, and the rest is history after that. So yeah, networking is really key, and especially if you're looking out for internships too. It's another great recruiting tool. I mean, not only do you get to find out what's going on from family or friends, it's an opportunity to experience it firsthand. It's kind of try it out for the summer. Hey, do I really like this? Do I like what I'm doing? Is this it for me? And I think Isaac hit it right in the head before. Just ask questions, stay curious all the time, and the more you talk, the more you ask questions, the more you're going to learn. And it really is to your benefit to do that.
Right. Perfect. Well, I appreciate you answering that. And I think I want to ask a part 2 to your response. So you just hit on a lot of do's. Are there any don'ts for maybe what you don't want to do when trying to land a job? It's a funny question, but we get asked that all the time. Everyone's always harping on what to do. But is there anything you'd recommend people don't do if they're going to a job fair, walking up to a booth where Boeing is exhibiting?
Yeah, sure. Certainly. I would think one thing is just be yourself. So in terms of don't do's, don't try to give the answer you think a recruiter wants to hear about or an interviewer wants to hear about. They're there to talk to you. They're interested in you for that role. And eventually you're just going to have to go be you at work. So they're already interested in you. Just be you and put your best foot forward, and I think that'll take you places.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Brian. I think I want to pose that question to one additional person. So Isaac, I'm going to pose the same question to you. How did you find your job with Boeing after graduating, or even your first job out of college?
Sure. So this is it's an interesting way about how this happened. So going through college, everyone in the STEM field says, all right, you need an internship to be able to get into the work world, because if you don't have work experience, then they won't hire you. And not just saying Boeing, but just in general for industry. And I honestly didn't have anything until going into my senior year, right before my senior year. It was applying to lots and lots of internships and getting rejected. And the way I got about this internship was I completed a Boeing business case competition that was held between engineering and the business school to partner together to do some kind of mock business case. And my team won, and I put that on my resume and I applied to Boeing. And when I applied to Boeing, I applied to about 10 different jobs and 10 different internships, got rejected by 9 and got a hit for 1 to do an interview. So that was my track to at least getting my foot in the door, and then actually interviewing, and then them actually liking me. That was really great to be able to transition into the actual internship and then turning that into a full-time job. So that was my track about how that went about.
So would you say persistence is key?
Very. Even in Boeing, I was, there are tons of people that apply to every single job. Even internally, I've applied to hundreds of jobs and maybe gotten a few that actually transition to an interview. So do not be scared to keep pushing and keep going forward with applications.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Isaac, for answering that one as well. The next question up, I'm going to ask again a few people. So I'll start with you, Tim. What does it take to lead in your career at Boeing?
Well, for my career, as I'm transitioned into greater leadership roles, I think that one thing you have to have is a tireless work ethic. You have to strive for continuous improvement, never think you know everything or know all the answers. You need some humility. You need to be prepared, like as Isaac was talking about, persistence. You need to be able to get knocked down and get back up again. Not physically, just metaphorically. You need to take your lumps. I think you need to build the trust of your team and the people around you, and that trust goes both ways. You need to trust people. Like if you give people something to do, you need to trust they're going to do it, and don't try and do it for them. And just respect yourself, respect other people. I think it's a simple formula, but if you work hard, you try and get better, you trust people, you respect people, good things will come from that.
Goes a long way. Agreed. Thank you, Tim. Christina, I'd love to pose that question to you as well. What does it take for you to lead in your career?
I think in addition to the attributes Tim described, I think really being able to work in teams is key. I found that no matter which program I've been on, it's always either a program team, an integrated product team, a capability team. But the ability to work well with others is key to any business you choose to pursue. How you show up, how you help your team succeed and make it not an individual contribution, but a team contribution. That's how you can really succeed in business.
Great. Well, Russell, I'll ask you last. Beyond what Tim and Christina shared as attributes that help them lead in their specific roles at Boeing, is there anything exclusive or specific that they did not hit on that helps you lead in your career?
Yeah, I guess the thing I would add would be, and it kind of dovetails in with some things I said, but honesty and integrity, right? So I'm a lead engineer, and we're designing critical pieces of aircraft that are going to literally touch millions of people's lives and fly them around, and we need them to get where they're going safely. So a big part of that is being able to have an open and honest chain of communication with your team that's working for you, right? You cannot touch everything that your team is working, and you need to be able to trust them and trust that they're going to come to you with important pieces of information when you need them to. So there's a lot of that honesty and integrity that is really, really critical. And I guess the one other thing that I would add is that you really need to have, you need to trust your team and all that, but you also have to have some confidence in yourself, because you need to be able to sell your vision to your team as well, right? And if you don't believe in yourself, then it's really hard for people to believe in you as well.
Of course, that's a great point. All right, so my next question I'm going to pose to several of you again, and this has been one that we hear all the time whenever we're planning virtual events. People just kind of want to know what a day in your life is like. And specifically what I'm going to pose, starting with Brian, let's circle back with you. What was your favorite project or has been your favorite project you've worked on at Boeing?
Okay, about 5 years old, I was my first lead engineer role was on a development program, and I was asked to go lead the test team on that. So it was literally fly all over the country, go do wind tunnel testing, and get the information that the team needs to succeed. It was my favorite because it was this kind of tight-knit team. There was probably 40 or 50 of us on the team total, which by standards of programs we work on is generally pretty tiny. So I knew we had to get a certain amount of information to get past certain design reviews for a pretty demanding customer, and it was, hey, go and get this information. If you guys fail at this test, then we can't get through the next design review. We absolutely need to go get it done. So pressure was on, but the team I was working with was fantastic, and everybody really had each other's back. So 10, 11-hour days, in seeing walls without windows inside of a lab didn't seem so bad when you're really working with a great team. In the end, we were pretty successful in it too. So just seeing how my part of the effort paid off in the team success was particularly rewarding, and the customer was super happy in the end. So it was a lot of work. I got to do a bunch of travel and go see a lot of neat places and do a lot of neat testing. But yeah, it was fun, and to watch it pay off was pretty rewarding.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Brian. I'm going to ask one more person, and I only want to spend probably about 5 more minutes or so on the panel questions. I'm seeing a lot pop up in Q&A, and we have a lot of attendees for this being our last session after I think the school day has ended. So I really appreciate everyone staying tuned and want to make sure we get to those live questions. So Isaac, I will ask you that same question as well. Has there been a favorite project that you've worked on that you'd like to share?
Oh man, there was one when I first started working at Boeing Philadelphia. Was this one international customer's aircraft, a Chinook helicopter, that was the first time that this country had ever purchased a Chinook helicopter, and I was in the role of production engineering, one of the production engineering leads, to ensure that the integration between programmatics and design engineering, and then translating it to the actual employees that actually built the aircraft, was done efficiently and effectively. And then the first time seeing that actual aircraft fly and leave the ground, I will say I was a little tearful at that moment. And then being able to, which is a very amazing opportunity, was able to fly on said aircraft and be able to fly over the plant with that aircraft. That was a truly amazing experience. And it's something that I've always wanted to fly on military aircraft. Have a big family background in the military. And so just being able to be a participant and support in that role was just truly, truly amazing.
Thank you, Brian and Isaac, for sharing those 2 projects with us. So the next question I'd love to ask, let's start with you, Christina, is what is the most valuable skill you've earned in your time working at Boeing?
That's a tough one. I know we've already talked about teamwork, but I think it really is to develop your network. You don't know when you're going to cycle back and work with somebody again, but either way, really working hard to deliver on your commitments, to build your network, and grow and bring your team along with you. That is where value is generated.
Fantastic. Okay, let's continue on. Isaac, what's the most valuable skill you've earned with your time at Boeing?
Most valuable skill is communication, and be able to effectively communicate to different audiences and different knowledge levels is a very good skill to have. And what I've learned to effectively communicate, so that way there's no misunderstandings and what was said or needed to be said, or why you said it a certain way. One word can change the entire context of an entire sentence. So that is one lesson that I've learned, and positives and negatives in different situations.
I think this is a good question to ask everyone. So Tim, I'll go to you next. Most valuable skill hard to pick one that you've learned in your time at Boeing?
I think it's easy for me. The most valuable skill anyone can have is listening to each other, listening to your customers, listening to your leaders, listening to the people you work with, people who work for you. If you spend all your time talking, you're not really learning anything. You need to listen to people to understand what their true needs are, and then you can help solve it. You don't have the answers. You need to listen.
All right, thank you, Tim. Brian, and then we'll wrap up with Russell on that question.
Yeah, I'll actually build off of Tim's. Go with empathy. I mean, not only listening to what people are going through, but really try to understand and kind of put yourself in their shoes. Sometimes you get in situations you got to work early mornings, late nights, over weekends. People are stressed because you got to meet a deadline, because people out in we're going into combat situations rely on the products that we make, and we have to deliver a safe, quality product for them. So sometimes the pressure's on. So being able to really understand what your teammates are going through, put yourself in their shoes, really makes a pretty fantastic working relationship and working environment.
Great skill and just general advice. And Russell, we'll end that question with you. What is the most valuable skill you've earned at Boeing?
I think it's just this unwavering commitment to getting things right, and coming up with a quality product. We're working on these really large scale things. There's so many moving pieces, and such large schedules, and so many different things that come together at the same time, that have to come together at the same time. It's easy to get frustrated and when you're working all these extra hours and weekends, et cetera. But it's just, you gotta have that commitment to ending up with the right product at the end of the day and making sure the quality is top notch.
Of course, makes sense. All right, then I think we're gonna wrap up with one final question. And just for the sake of time, I'm gonna pose this last question to just you, Tim, to wrap up for us. What is unique about Boeing's Philadelphia site, right across the border from Delaware, compared to other Boeing locations?
I think that one thing we have unique to other sites, we're a defense site primarily, but we do a lot of work for commercial programs as well. I know Russ works in the Philadelphia Design Center. I didn't know it existed, probably really, until I met Russ. They do a lot of engineering work here for commercial programs. We have a lot of diverse opportunities. We have military aircraft. We have secret programs that I don't know about, but I know they're here. We have a lot of opportunities in all aspects of the business. That some sites are other specific on one program, one platform, and we do a lot here. So there's a lot of opportunity.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you guys joining this panel portion. I know we said we would end with a Q&A, and with the 10 or so minutes we have left, I'd love to dive right in. Tim, I'm coming straight back to you, and I'm going to interrupt the Q&A box to just ask a personal question that I know everyone's thinking. How did you go from a degree in education to Boeing? Where, in a very high level, can you describe the winding path that got you there?
Yeah, hard work got me there. And if you're looking for job titles, I took a job I was a teacher for a bit. I built off the skills I got there. And I did customer service. So I have a customer mindset. That's what helps me listen and communicate with people better. I moved into, from a customer service role into a procurement role, buying parts, planning parts for a factory, building my resume to be able to get to Boeing. It took a long time. Like Isaac said, 7 years of flying, 7 years it took. I'm not mad, I'm happy to be here. Just rounding out my skills, customer service, purchasing, planning. I did everything from shipping, held multiple jobs, just worked hard. I never gave up. And I got here in a supply chain role, and I built onto that. Now I'm in project management, so.
Great, appreciate you sharing that. All right, so over to the Q&A box. We have several questions. The first is a consistent theme. We've had this question asked in almost every panel we've had. How has just work shifted or changed for you since the pandemic began? So anyone who would like to kind of jump in and answer, I don't know if you guys want to kind of tag some of these, but open to anyone.
I'll start. This is Isaac. So I would say COVID has really shifted the way I go about my work. So, prior to COVID happening, we were working in person. And then COVID, really picked up in the area and required some individuals to go virtual, myself. And so that required setting up shop at home. But then one caveat is that I'm a new dad. And so having a baby at home, supporting my wife in that regard, and then trying to hold meetings, it was definitely finding a new battle rhythm and then figuring out what works best. And a lot of the fellow coworkers really understood when you're on a call and you might hear a baby cry out. You're like, oh, what's that? Don't worry, that's just my kid. He's fine. So it's been really interesting just transitioning into a different environment, working in a COVID, sometimes virtual environment. But I think everyone has really hunkered down in a sense to find a way to make it work and to really make it their own in a sense.
Well, that's a great answer, and congratulations, by the way, to you and your family.
Thank
Chris,
you.
do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing we actually have in common is we all have kids and are working parents. My kids are school-age children. And when this all broke loose, it was really chaotic. There's no easy way to describe it. Because like Isaac mentioned, my kids would be coming in and be like, can you help me with school? And I'm trying to host a meeting and get things done. And it added a lot of stress to the day. But then one thing I found had helped kind of through that is kind of shifting my work and sleep schedule, because there was such work-life imbalance. I found myself ending up starting work at like 4 a.m. So that way I could end at a time where when the kids were off school or were done with camp, because we started camp in the summer, that we could actually spend more quality time together. So that was helpful as well. But yeah, definitely a challenging year. And what we call working on our adaptive leadership skills, just rolling with the changes.
Right. Well, I appreciate you both sharing that. Yeah, it's definitely been interesting for all companies navigating, of course, just navigating the pandemic. All right. So the next question is one I feel everyone's kind of hit on in some ways, but just generally, what's your favorite part about working at Boeing? So does anyone want to hop in and answer that question?
Yeah, this is Russ. I'll jump in and answer that. So as an engineer, my favorite part is actually getting to see something that I've stared at on a computer or on paper for years actually come to life and get built, and then take off one day and fly in the sky. It's really cool to walk around with my kids or whomever and say, yeah, I worked on that plane that just flew over our head, if it's something that did. So for me, it's all about that. It's about an idea that you had and something that you worked hard on, actually coming to life and becoming a real thing.
Great. All right. Thank you for answering that, Russell. The next few questions I'm going to kind of tie together. Instead of just asking one person to answer, I'm just going to do kind of a hand raise, because we've already kind of hit on this. But a couple people are asking, again, more in regards to your educational background. And we have a question from Chris about, have you always been interested in aerospace? So just by a show of hands, who has always been interested in aerospace? Okay, there we go. 2.5 out of 5, half of our panelists. We do have a former teacher, of course, on our panel. So that's pretty fascinating to hear. Does anyone want to elaborate on that at all?
Sure, I will. I actually feel like I ended up here almost accidentally into aerospace. When I was in college, I had applied for an internship with Otis Elevator. And Otis Elevator is also owned by a company called United Technologies, who also owns Sikorsky Aircraft, our direct competitor. Then when it came time to graduate, I was looking for some career opportunities, and Sikorsky Aircraft happened to be at a career fair. So I showed up at the career fair, and they noted that Otis was on my resume, and as a result, they had picked me up. So I worked in Connecticut for about 7 years, getting engaged and coming back down to the Boeing, the area where Boeing is in South Jersey. But yeah, definitely. It was a roundabout way of getting into aerospace. But I cannot say enough good things about our products. I'm glad I chose this path, or it chose me rather, because there is just something really truly inspiring about seeing an aircraft that you personally worked on and you had a stake in making happen fly in the air for the first time, or even like Russ mentioned, just overhead. There's something special about it.
Oh, I completely agree. It's Tala, who I work for, is headquartered in Charleston, South Carolina. So we are not far away from where lots of planes are assembled. And it's so interesting. Every time we drive by, you just love to be a fly on the wall on the production floor, seeing everything take place. It's just such a fascinating industry. All right, so our next question from a student asks, how is Boeing involved with the military? So does anyone want to kind of expand upon your defense contracts and work and any information you can share there?
Yeah, I can take this one. So our primary customer for just about every product that we make is a military customer. So I think pretty much all of us in the room or on the panel here have, direct engagement with a customer, who represents or is in active service right now. I mean, literally right before this call, I was on the phone with the U.S. Air Force. Our customer, our partner in a lot of this is defense services. And beyond that, Boeing has a lot of veterans who are part of our team too. So I think from a cultural perspective at Boeing, just having so many coworkers, so many teammates who have just a personal experience and a real human personal connection with, the products that we make, and, they know why it's important to them. And I think that really permeates the culture at Boeing. I think really helps drive, the quality and the safety and of really all that we do, and really reinforces that commitment to absolutely getting things right and putting the best product in, for our defense customers, because we know people are taking our products in and out of harm's way. So it's imperative that we get it right. And those veterans that are part of our team really help reinforce that and drive that home.
Great.
Yeah, and I'd say in addition to the U.S. government, we deal directly with a lot of foreign governments as well. I've been on Air Force bases, Army bases all around the world, in Italy, Japan, India, Korea, Spain, and our products are used. The Chinook and soon to be the V-22 have a big international presence because they can be used for, peacekeeping missions and things like that. So we deal directly with our government, with commercial customers, and with foreign governments on a daily basis. It's awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. I was interested in hearing more on that as well. So Christopher put in a fun question. I'd love to hear the answer to this one. Have you ever helped, anyone here from our panelists, ever helped to fly any aircraft that you've taken part in or helped with? Or even wanted to? Maybe it should be part 1 and 2.
So I've never flown in one. I've never flown an aircraft myself. I have gotten to fly in the simulators, which is pretty awesome. But I'm fortunate that one of my friends at Boeing is actually one of the Chinook pilots. So I got to go on one of the recognition flights and got to sit in the jump seat right between both pilots for a Chinook flight. And it was amazing. I can't even describe best day of work ever.
Very cool. Anyone else? No one else has flown.
Sorry. Yeah. I haven't flown, but almost similar to Christina, flown in Chinook. And then I had one experience where I was able to fly in a Black Hawk in Florida, and we were doing some interesting testing that required some unique maneuvers in that aircraft. So that was a very thrilling ride, I'll say, in that world.
I am sure it was. Can't even imagine. All right. Well, we're about out of time to wrap up day 2 of Delaware Days. So I think I'll ask one final question that we received earlier. What are some helpful tips to networking? So we'll wrap up with that question if anyone would like to jump in.
So I'll jump in first. I find networking very difficult and, tedious. And I feel like sometimes people are going to think I'm trying to get something out of them, or I feel like they're trying to get something out of me. And my tip is just be yourself, be open. The best networking starts with your peers, like the folks on the phone with me today. I consider this my network. And there is strategic networking you can do working up. I'm not that good at that, but I do most of my networking here with the people that are close to me. So just be yourself.
Yeah, I think it's just about not being afraid to be yourself and putting yourself out there. Like Tim, I'm not great at, being outgoing and putting myself out there to people I don't know. But, if it's an organic thing and you're just having conversations with people, I mean, to me, that's the way I've built my network. It's never been anything forced or strategic for me either.
Yeah, I'll add on one more to that too, is don't be afraid to ask questions of your superiors or people who've been doing the job or who, for 30 years or who are experts on. I mean, you don't have to know all the answers to the questions all the time. Just go ask. You never know when you're gonna make a good friend or a connection that way. And on top of that too, when something's asked of you, just make sure you deliver. Always just put your best foot forward and do a great job. People will recognize and they'll keep asking you back to participate. And it's a great, natural, kind of organic way to build your network that way too.
Of course. Well, Christina, Tim, Brian, Isaac, and Russell, we have now reached the end of our panel discussion. I so appreciate all of you carving out some time in your Thursday to join us, and not only the students in classrooms who are tuning in, but the job seekers here in Delaware and beyond. I know I learned a lot. I think we could see from the Q&A that our audience was really engaged and excited about what you had to share with them. So thank you again for joining Delaware Days, and please enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Of course.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.